Hey, good afternoon, folks. So you're at the 2020 All Canada Show, and you're looking for that trip for this coming summer. And you're in the Canada Questions area, and you've got some questions. You don't know exactly what you're looking for. So let's just walk through some of the types of trips that maybe are available in today's show, like housekeeping plan, American plan.
Yeah, it's time to hear. You're at the show. It's time to book it now.
Right.
But I know you're probably lost a little bit. Like, what do we do? Which trip do we pick? Fly in, drive in? Scott and I have done both these trips, so we thought we'd just chat a minute about this. And
Yeah, so first of all, is maybe the type of trip you want to go on. Do you want a housekeeping plan trip? So you're kind of renting a cabin and a boat at a lodge. You're going to do your own cooking. You're going to bring your own supplies versus maybe an American plan. Those are kind of the two big ones.
we both like both types of trips. Scott,
Right.
what kind of trip do you like to go on?
The housekeeping plan is probably something I like to do my own cooking on my own schedule. But the American plan has a lot of advantages
It
too. A
does.
lot less stuff to pack.
Yes. All you have to think about is fishing, and then
Right.
do everything else for you. No food preparation. Sure, you have to come in. Guys complain you have to come in at 5 o'clock for supper, but guess what? You're right back out again at 6:30.
Probably a
fishing again.
gourmet meal prepared by a chef.
At the end of the day, you probably fish more in that week than you would housekeeping, because housekeeping you have all the chores. But
Right. So those are kind of the two big ones there: housekeeping or American plan. Let's talk about where are we going to? Which province we going to?
you're standing in the show here, and it is a little intimidating. There is boat in, fly in, drive in. You got expenses. Do you fly to the destination? Do you drive up to the province? A lot of things are running through your head, I'm sure, and there's no exact answer. I think you got to get the group together. Would you say, Stan? You have to figure out your group first.
Figure a group. Where are we going to? Are we going up to Ontario, straight above where we're at probably today? Chicago, Green Bay, Milwaukee. Are we going to Manitoba? Are we going to Saskatchewan? There's all those in the room. There's Alberta. There's the Yukon.
It comes down to budget somewhat. Of course, your group of 5, 6 guys get together. You've got to decide on a few of these things. Do you want to spend, is your budget, $1,000? Is your budget $5,000? Or somewhere in between, most likely. The group's got to agree.
Right. So once the budget is set, we can kind of talk about, are we driving? Maybe that's a smaller budget trip, is just driving all the way up to your destination. Maybe some little more expensive. We're going to fly into a lodge. We're going to drive to a certain point. We're going to fly in, whether it's a float plane to an outpost, a float plane to a lodge, or maybe even a wheeled plane.
Sure,
Runway. The option's out there today.
A little problem, you're standing in the show here and there's literally 100 or more, 150 lodges around you. And it's intimidating. Who do you talk to? Who do you not talk to? One little tip I've got is, if you only want to do a drive-in and you walk by a booth with a float plane on the backdrop, that's probably a good indication you want to skip that one. Now, you might want to go back to that booth for future reference, future trips, ideas.
Decide you want to fly.
Yeah, maybe 2 years from now you're like, okay, not this group, we're not flying this year, but in 2 years I'd really like to fly. So go talk with that flying outpost guy, flying lodge guy, get some more information. You have all day here at the show.
Right.
It's not a time limit.
This
your ticket.
is kind of your time. I know a lot of people like to do online research.
Yeah,
but
just
this is the reason the show is here today. Is you can go to X booth and X booth and X booth and just keep rotating and talk to them, ask those same questions. Oh, I forgot to ask that question over here. Well, you can go back there now and ask that question.
And I see a lot of guys will do that for an hour or two. Then they'll gather all their information. They'll take it back to a shore lunch to our concession area, sit down, have a beer, have a blue, eat shore lunch with their buddies, and decipher it. But what that allows them to do then is 2 guys will jump up and go, hey, we forgot about this question. And they'll run back to one of the lodges and say, hey, what kind of boats do you have again? Oh, yeah. And then run back to the group and say, hey, they've got the boats we're looking for. Or they don't have the boats we're looking for. Some of the things I really like questions on are boats, motors, cabins, equipment in general. You spend a lot of time in your boat.
So let's review really quick before we get into specific questions as you're asking the lodge owner. We want to think about budget. Are we driving or are we flying? Are we going Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan?
American plan, housekeeping, now that does drive the
housekeeping.
price, of course.
Yep. Housekeeping plan, more budget friendly. American plan, you're obviously going to pay probably a little bit more.
But don't forget, you do have the added costs of the groceries, and
Right.
there's other added costs, packing. It might even come down to transportation up there. Can you run up in a car, or now do we need to take a truck to get our
Right.
supplies up? So there are so many variables.
So now that we determined housekeeping, American plan, province, budget, we want to talk about specific questions we're probably going to ask these guys while they're out there today. Tough questions that it's tough to ask online as you're staring at their website. Like I don't quite get what I'm seeing here on their website. So now let's talk some questions. For me, a big one would be the boat.
Oh, most
I'm
definitely.
I'm spending a high percentage of my time in the boat. How long are the boats? What kind of boats? Remember, different manufacturers of boats are wider beam, narrower.
And the situation might call for a narrower boat too. If you're a type of trip where you're slipping through up channels and get into another body of water, that outfitter might have smaller boats for that good reason. He needs to travel. Now you might be in a large body of water like Lake of the Woods, Eagle Lake.
Well, that's a good question. Am I going?
Yeah.
What size body of water am
Do you
I
feel
going
comfortable
on?
with? Yeah.
Right. Do I want a smaller body of water where I feel more comfortable, or
But that also limits your options. Where a bigger body of water, my boat can travel 5 miles, 8 miles, 20 miles that way to chase another species, another area structure type of
yeah?
lake.
Are you a safer group, or are you a little more adventurous group? I would always say that kind of comes down to it.
Oh, definitely. And the level of angling knowledge you have. Maybe you're the group leader and you fished every year in Canada, you fish all year around your home state, but the rest of your group hasn't touched a rod in a whole year. So be careful how you book that trip.
Right.
Consider everybody on the trip.
So back to the boat. Now the motor, right?
Yeah.
Are they electric starts? Do I have to pull them over? Horsepower?
Right, and all is the situation you go into. An outpost, a little outpost lake, will have a little 9.9 or 8 horse motor on it. That thing starts with 2 fingers, 2 poles, doesn't need electric start.
Right.
Now, versus being on a bigger body of water, obviously you get up into 30 and 40 horse motors, they're going to have electric start.
Right.
But those are good questions to ask. Just so you
Locators,
know.
locators.
Very good.
Does the lodge provide locators on their boats with depth finders? Some have GPS on their boats, which is very nice. You never get lost on a lake. You can set the lodge's home. You always follow your tracks back. Those types of things.
One thing that's important for me is, can I tie my boat up out in front? Do I get a private slip or a slip for you for your boat? So you walk down, your boat is always tied there. Can I leave my equipment in the boat, my basic rods, reels, tackle, in the boat if it's not raining, or I choose to leave it there? Or is it going to be at a remote location where I have to hike to the boat? There's so many variables that they don't always make clear because you didn't ask. But
Right.
now's your time to ask. You're at the show. Ask every question possible.
Like a cabin. So we see the pretty picture of the beautiful cabin. Am I going to be in that cabin?
Right.
Or which cabin am I going to be in? Show me a picture of that cabin. They've all got pictures
Right.
of all their cabins inside. So tell me what cabin I would be in if I'm going to book this trip and just take a quick little tour around that cabin. It takes just a second, and I'm sure they have that information.
Yeah. When I'm out in the boat, things I want to know about are shore lunch locations. Shore lunch is pretty important to me. Is it set up for you? Is there a fire ring? Is there a picnic table there? Is there designated spots? Or do you need to carve your own location, which is totally fine. Just everybody's level of competent in creating shore lunch. What do you want to do on your trip? Is shore lunch a big part of your trip, or is it not? Some people go back to the cabin every day.
Right.
Know
right.
that. Do they give you a kit to build the shore lunch, or do you need to bring that yourself? Another question. There's endless questions here.
Yep, fish cleaning. Do you have a fish house? Am I cleaning the fish? How's the trip set up? Are the facilities in place to clean my fish? Take home fish?
Yes,
Freezing
yes.
fish? How does that process work? That's
Which all
another
that
good
stuff adds into added cost. Does the bait cost extra? Does
Bait,
the
that's a
freezing
good
of
one.
fish, cleaning of the fish? Is there extra fees that I don't know associated with this trip where maybe trip A has everything taken care of, and trip B looks a little cheaper on paper, but at the end of the day it's going to cost you hundreds more because of all the little services that you require.
So now we threw out a lot of stuff there really quick, but if you look, Steve and I are probably standing just to the side of you here at the Canada Questions booth.
Yes.
We have 8.5 by 11s with a lot of this stuff on. Informational questions to ask. booking, travel.
One thing we haven't got
Travel
into
list.
is, come see us.
We're right here.
Border crossing.
Border crossing.
Is like probably one of the number one questions.
So let's walk through. Let's say we're driving up through Ontario and we're going to cross at International Falls. I think. Steve, have you crossed there before?
I've crossed there a few hundred times.
Right. So we have literally had zero issues ever crossing the border.
As long as you're prepared for the border.
Let's talk about that real quick. How we're going to do that? We got a group. We got 4 guys in the truck. Actually, let's back up just a second. We're bringing some beer with us, and who doesn't? Who doesn't? We're confused about duty, buying the beer in Canada, buying the beer in the U.S. We typically default to purchasing the beer in the States and just paying the couple dollar duty. You're allowed a case of beer per person or a bottle.
Or 1 liter bottle.
If you want to bring more than that, you are perfectly welcome. You just pay a couple dollars duty is all you do.
Real simple process. As you pull up to the border, you just offer that you have. They'll ask you questions like how much currency do you have on you? Do you have any weapons on you? Tobacco products or alcohol products? And you just declare it. Once you declare, no problem at all. You come on in. You take care of any duty, whether it's a tobacco issue that you have over the limit. I can't remember if it's 1 carton, I think, of cigarettes. But meaning it doesn't matter. Anything you have to pay duty on, it's a real simple process.
So we have 4 guys in the truck and we have 10 cases of beer.
Sure. Sounds about right.
That sounds about right. So we're allowed to bring 4. We have 6 over. We just pay duty on the 6.
Right.
That's the only thing. It'll be a couple dollars. They'll ask you that question. They'll write up a little slip. 6 cases of beer to pay duty on. You walk in, you just pay it.
But now if we back up, so now we're already at the border. We back up, so you're in line. Hopefully
you're in line.
You're pull up and there's only 2 cars ahead of you. That'd be a great case scenario. Many times there's 10 to 15 cars. Hopefully no more than 20 cars ahead of you. But it moves pretty fast, so it's not a big deal. But to prep as you enter the border, me and Scott have done it many times. Simple little things. Take off your sunglasses.
Yep.
Roll down all the windows.
All windows.
In general. If there's people in the back seat, roll their window down so there's clear view of all passengers.
They want to see everybody in the vehicle.
Right. Let the driver give all 4 passports. Just example, 4 people in the vehicle. Give all 4 passports to the driver. The driver will in turn hand them to the Canada border crossing agent, customer or agent, and let the driver do all of the
Driver does
speaking.
the talking.
Yeah.
He's the only one.
Unless ask specific questions to a passenger, and they may ask a specific question: Where are you from?
Where are you from?
What do you do?
That's the common one. Where are you coming from? They're going to ask you the lodge you're going to, and you say whatever lodge you're going to, and they're going to ask you the return date. So keep that in mind as you're preparing to cross. They're going to ask you the return date.
Right.
They typically do.
The other tip is if you do have children under 18 with you, and the parent or guardian is not specifically with you, and even if they are, both parents, if they're not present, then that child needs a signed letter of declaration saying the second parent that is not in the vehicle gives permission for that person to cross the border with.
The example there would be Grandpa is taking the kids fishing, and he's crossing the border with Jill and Johnny, and Jill and Johnny should have a written note from the parents saying that Grandpa can take them.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Right.
It clears up all communication issues, makes life easy for everybody, and for good reason. They should be checking on this. I mean, you are crossing into another country.
And we do recommend passports.
Most definitely.
Most definitely passports.
Required everybody over 16 years of age would need a passport.
Kids can use a birth certificate. Original birth certificate.
There are a few different types of passports. The card versus the standard passport. Now the card is only good for driving across. If you ever plan on flying across the border, then you need the full passport. But they are good for 10 years, so it's a small investment for identification purposes.
Pretty basic deal crossing the border. Couple highlights. Just the driver do the talking unless addressed. Duty's not an issue on alcohol or tobacco products.
Right.
We would recommend buying it in the U.S., just paying the duty.
It is concerning, and a lot of people, it's their number one question, and I'll even have to say is when I pull up to the border, I'm focused on what I'm doing, but I have full confidence. I've literally crossed over 100 times. I've never once had any issue. They're very polite, very friendly,
Very
over
quick.
the top.
Very quick.
Yeah, it takes maybe minutes. That's it. You're on your way. I mean, I've had passings last 30 seconds.
Steve and I are standing right here.
We're right here.
So-
Come ask it. you're at the show. Can't get across more. You've already made the commitment to coming to the show. Spend 2, 3, 4 hours here. We don't care. Ask every question. Roam the aisles 2, 3 times. It's your chance. Don't leave without booking that trip.
Right. Thanks. And thanks for coming to the 2020 All Canada Show.
This is your year to visit Canada. The All Canada Show.
This is your year to visit Canada.
The All Canada Show.
Feel it in the air.
Come and share the experience.
It all begins right here.
The All Canada Show.
This is your year to visit Canada.
The All Canada Show.